right, you guys ready? All right, we're about to jump into this. Just wanted to get things rocking and rolling just a little bit earlier than normal this morning to make sure that everything's working after yesterday's complete and total train wreck. I mean, it was, wow. It was one of those unusual things that, like 3 minutes before airtime, everything just came off the rails. So it was good old-fashioned radio yesterday. So, you guys ready for Friday? I'm ready. I'm going to take a damn nap as soon as the show's over. Yesterday was 4:45 in the morning till 7 o'clock last night. That's what it was like. Woo! Woo! Anyway, it's good to be here. It's good to be Friday. I'm looking forward to this. JD Tuccille's about to join us, and we're going to jump into this with both feet, cover some other news stories and everything else, all while I watch the temperature of my computer. I've got an eye on. I can see. I've got an eye on you right here, watching it. All right, so that's it. I just I did the new computer is half built. I spent 2 hours yesterday putting everything together. So hopefully by Monday we'll be up with a new one. Yeah, yesterday was my sign from God. Why haven't you built this new computer? It's like, man, the dust bunnies I pulled out of the processor of this computer, I'm surprised it was running as well as it was. All right. So anyway, that's it. Thanks, Melissa, for rubbing that in. Appreciate it. Here's your sign to stop procrastinating. I joined the Procrastinators Club. It's been a year. We still haven't met yet, so I don't know what that means. All right. Well, let's get to it, my friends. Here we go. We'll see you. Let's do it.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
This is my rifle, this is my gun, this is my body, this is my blood.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the program. It's Friday already. I mean, it's just, I was talking to my wife yesterday, day before, and I was just saying it just seems like the days have accelerated since I took over this new venture. It just seems like how did we get to it's July next week. How did we get to the 7th month of the year already? It has just been baffling how fast things just start cranking. I would like them. I mean, it's nice because the days go by quickly and, the weekends come and everything. But it sure would be nice if it would just slow down for a hot second, because I'm going to be 80 years old before before we get too far along. Next week, I'll be 80. That's what it feels like sometimes here. Welcome back to the program, and thanks for coming in and joining us. No technical issues today. I was just saying yesterday once I got into that computer, the computer that I used to broadcast with, I was so shocked that the damn thing was actually running. It was so full of dust bunnies and everything else and stuff packed around the processor. And anyway, it was it was educational. This is what happens when you don't do a little bit more preventative maintenance. Anyway, so we're back and running. Everything's going, and we are ready to rock and roll. Big show for you today. We're waiting here for JD Tuccille to join us. JD, of course, writes for Reason Magazine. He's a senior contributing editor over there at Reason. Writes on a variety of issues, including the latest piece on the big, beautiful bill and the stripping out and delisting of suppressors and short-barreled rifles from the NFA. And there's been some movement on this yesterday. We got some bad news from the Senate parliamentarian, so we're going to talk about that. We'll see what that looks. We'll see what that looks like here with JD and get the latest and greatest from him as well. We're also going to cover the potential, and I say potential for a reason, the potential shooting at the Cross Point Community Church in Michigan, the mass shooting that didn't happen. Why? Well, that would be because an armed citizen stood up and did the right thing. Not a security guard, as some have, I love how they have to spin this. They have to spin it that it couldn't possibly be a privately armed, a privately armed citizen. They have to spin it like it's some kind of professional, or at least imply that, which is it's an interesting take. Let's just put it that way. That's not how it went down, and we've got some details on that as well. And what other stories that I got here? I got a couple other things that are going on. I'm just waiting to see if JD is going to pop up here on me and see what's. I'll check. I got text messages. There's text messages. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're going to we'll wait here for JD to jump in and join us. Firearms Friday, of course, is the one day a week where we dedicate the show to the Second Amendment and basically give you the opportunity to sound off on issues of a two-way nature. Why? Well, because quite honestly, I believe that the Second Amendment is really the only reason why we have remained as free a nation as we are today. Now, we got some bumps, we get some blisters, we get some bruises, cuts and scrapes. I mean, we're not as pristine as we once were as a nation, right? In the beginning, under the founders' vision of, of no tyranny and self-determination and a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We've seen some of the things that George Washington was worried about, or excuse me, not George Washington, but Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were worried about, where they talked about the consolidation of power into the federal government and how the states could be denied their own manifest destiny and their own, self-determination. And so it's, we've come quite a long ways, but even with some of those problems, we're still the freest nation in the world. And I attribute that largely to the indomitable American spirit, the love of freedom, that while we are mostly people who are, law abiding and believe in following the rules and are generally well-meaning and we still have that kind of stubborn streak. We still have that kind of base determination to do the right thing, and in a lot of cases to question authority, and in most cases that if something is faulty or bad wrong, we will eventually stand up to it. And that's what Jefferson and others were talking about when they took on the Second Amendment and enshrined it in the Bill of Rights, to say that this is a stopgap. This is a implicit threat against overarching government. And that's what Firearms Friday is all about, to try and bring that back to you, to show you that that's what makes us who we are today as a nation. Even with all the bumps and bruises and warts and blisters, America is not as free as it should be. We're still the freest place on the face of the earth, and we're happy that we get a chance to be here. So Fridays, we bring up these stories, we talk about these things, we dive down into it and delve down into it, and it's a good opportunity to do it. All right, I see that JD is on board this morning, so joining me now, let's get on over to him and see what he has to say. JD Tuccille, senior contributing editor for Reason Magazine. He joins us right now from a sunny, undisclosed secret location. And I can see he's all backlit. All like it's like one of those. It's like one of those documentaries where the guest is a shadow, and I keep expecting his voice to be all it's because he's in the beautiful sunlight. What is that stuff? I haven't seen that in a while. What is that? JD Tuccille joins us this morning. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. I'll have to ship you some sunlight. My apologies.
No,
I was delayed. I was in the middle of my workout.
Let me try this again. Let's try that one more time. See if we can get JD on board here. I could see him, but I can't hear him. And I don't know if that's a me or a JD thing. We're gonna test her out real quick here. See, this is where I got ahead of myself.
Is that working?
How about that? Can you hear me now, JD?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. See,
all
there
right.
you go.
There
one little click of a button, and away we go.
Anyway, my apologies. I was in a middle workout and I lost track of time. So entirely my fault.
We know that you're a sick man, that you can lose track of time while working out. I'm always watching the clock when I was working out. I was like, man, is this thing over yet? I just can't wait. Anyway, it's all good stuff. All right, JD, let's dive into this. And of course, some things have just happened on the big beautiful bill. We're talking about the delisting of suppressors and short-barreled rifles. I think we should start chronologically, and we'll start with the basis of the bill, what it means, what does it do. We'll kind of go through your article here, and then we can talk about what the parliamentarians said yesterday and what the next steps are. So let's take it from the top. If you got the chops, let's do it.
Absolutely. I mean, this started off with an attempt to delist suppressors under the National Firearms Act. Since then, it's stretched out and incorporated in the big beautiful bill are efforts to remove short-barreled rifles and all other weapons from being affected by the National Firearms Act, which was passed in 1934. Backstory is the first big federal gun legislation in the United States. Restricted automatic weapons, restricted short-barrel rifles. It almost banned handguns, which a lot of people don't realize. That was the original intent, and that's how we ended up with this weird short-barreled rifle ban. But of a particular intent, a particular interest to people these days is that it lists silencers, suppressors, and it makes it real hard. You've got to jump through hoops, pay a $200 federal tax, register a suppressor if you want to protect your hearing and be polite to the neighbors. And the new language rolled into this massive bill would make it so that you still have to go through a background check to buy a suppressor, but you no longer have to register it. You no longer have to pay the $200 tax. You could pass it on to your kids without, going through the feds or setting up a strange trust. It would make life a little bit easier and allow us to use what are considered to be just polite devices in countries like Norway, where you're kind of expected to use a suppressor when you go hunting. So it's interesting legislation, but its fate is tied to that of the big beautiful bill.
And as flawed, I was telling somebody yesterday that I feel kind of bad, because as flawed as the big beautiful bill is in many ways, and I think that there's still there's still a lot of problems with it, especially on the spending side. The new Senate, the new arithmetic that the Senate is trying to do to show that it only costs $460 million or billion, when the actual cost, if you did it under standard accounting practices, is something like $4 trillion. Even with all the problems, I'm tempted to just say, just pass the damn thing so we could get one good thing out of it, the suppressor delisting, right? I mean, because you guys are going to spend it anyway. You guys are going to drive, I don't think that they're ever going to stop driving this bus off the cliff. We might as well have some good things in it as we drive off the cliff to be able to protect ourselves, right? It's one of those things. That's kind of how I feel about, I don't know how you feel about it, but at some point I'm just shaking my head like, these guys are never going to learn.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, between extending the 2017 tax cuts and the NFA repeal, because this repeals big chunks of the National Firearms Act, there's enough good stuff in there, and I'm actually, like you, resigned to the self-imposed fate of the federal government. It's going to spend itself into oblivion in about 20 years, 15 years. It's going to be a hot mess financially in the United States. But and I don't know that I don't think the feds have any nerve, any backbone to address that. They're not going to cut spending. They're not going to, because what they're doing is they're buying votes. They're not going to stop buying votes, which is what all this heavy spending is about. So maybe if we can get at least a little more liberty out of it and some lower tax rates, it might be a good thing. So
No,
yeah,
that's exactly where I'm at. That's exactly where I'm at. I know that they're going to drive the bus off the cliff. I might as well have the good things, the liberty, the less taxes, the more gun freedoms, all the things. Any more freedom, I am for any bill that has anything revolving around freedom in it, because things are still going to hit the oscillating rotor down the road, because they're just so short-sighted. They can't see it. Everybody's been warning about it. They don't listen. So here we are.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And honestly, I mean, this would be the first significant rollback of federal gun laws that we've seen. I mean, I'd love to see them address the 1986 law too. That would be kind of awesome. Maybe get some fresh automatic weapons back into circulation, something that's manufactured recently. But just be able to use the suppressor. I mean, we almost all of us now have the ability to get firearms with threaded barrels. We know that we want to protect our hearing. Good quality ear protection is all over the market, because you need that. Who wants to have ringing ears and hearing loss over the course of their lives? So being able to buy suppressors would be a big deal. It would also get rid of this nonsense about short-barreled rifles. Is your rifle barrel a half an inch too short? Now you're a felon. Get that nonsense off the table too. That'd be fantastic. So if you could roll that back, I think the symbolism of getting that out of the way, as well as the practical impact, would be a big deal.
JD Tuccille, senior contributing editor for Reason Magazine, is our guest. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're back with more here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll return with more Firearms Friday right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we are back. JD Tuccille is our guest. Reason Magazine And I want to get into some of the details of this, JD, and because you go into great detail about how there's long-term benefits of this and how it's actually protected by the Second Amendment, and I think that's some pretty interesting stuff. I find it interesting, all the hand wringing that seems to be going on with this right now. There just seems to be a lot of people who are super upset and scared about the fact that people could be free. They could be able to do what they need to do and protect themselves from hearing loss and other things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, typical of this was Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, who tweeted that this panic, filled tweet about how the only use for silencers is the killers can sneak up on their victims, and there more victims to come won't know because they won't have heard the gunshots. Man, okay, I think we know that Chris Murphy has probably never fired a gun, let alone used a suppressor. The fact is that there's a lot of misconceptions about firearms, about suppressors. Silencers is kind of a disused term now, or one that's disliked, even though Hiram Maxim actually used it in his original patent. But the thing is, they don't lower the sound of a firearm that much. They don't reduce the noise of it that much. And so Chris Murphy is talking nonsense, as are a lot of the people out there spreading these Hollywood-style images of weapons that make no noise while someone is shooting up a crowd of people. Silencers, I mean, and I quoted a piece by an auditory professor, who wrote an article about this about 5 years ago. They reduce the sound of a gunshot, which might be, about 150 decibels, 170 decibels, reduces by anywhere between 7 and 32 decibels. So you still have a very, very loud gunshot, but it's not as loud. There's less chance of hearing damage. And this professor recommended the use of suppressors, but also said they should continue to be used with standard hearing protection for the best results. So because you end up with a gunshot that is almost always still north of 80 or 85 decibels, still rather loud, it just won't damage your hearing quite that much over time, or at least it won't damage it at all if you use hearing protection.
Well, and having shot a lot now I don't own any suppressors, but I have lots of friends that do. And when I was part of the Alaska Machine Gun Association, of course, that many members had all different kinds of suppressors, and it just made it very pleasant to be able to be at the range, especially if you were specifically shooting subsonic ammo. But again, I've often said that, especially if you're in an enclosed space or something like that, shooting with a suppressor is still like slapping a large library book on a table. It's not the, that Hollywood keeps telling you that it is. And I think a lot of what we're going through has to do with kind of the machinations of the entertainment industry and the hand wringing of the media on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, politicians don't care to inform themselves because, by and large, they love leveraging public misconceptions, some of which were innocently created by Hollywood because Hollywood loved the idea of firearms that wouldn't be heard in the next room. You'd have an assassin slip in, pop somebody in the head with a suppressed revolver, which was also hilarious because you can't really effectively suppress most revolvers, and then slip back out the window. It doesn't work that way. But politicians don't care because they're going for the base. They're going to get votes. They don't, especially in most cases, care about the issues unless they're personally invested in them. I mean, in this case, the member of Congress who put in the language to delist suppressors owns a gun shop. So he's personally invested. Good for him. He actually knows something about the issue. That's uncommon. And that's why we get told that 5.56 ammo will blow a hole through the side of an elephant, and why the shoulder thing that goes up is so dangerous, and why suppressors will allow serial killers to run amok.
Yeah, no, it's pretty astonishing. So we'll get into the details of this because we're about to rejoin the radio, and we'll get back to it. JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine, our guest. We continue here, the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Please like and share the show, like and follow. Let's do it. Here we
What the hell's an assault weapon?
You know, if we could just figure out how to get all of the murder guns and the attack guns and not keep selling those to people and just sell protection guns, I think that would be great and solve a lot of problems.
Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
Now, I'm sure JD Tuccille, when he goes to the gun shop, checks all the tags to make sure that they say protection guns, right? I mean, that's, you're not buying them murder guns, JD, right? I mean, just make me a promise, a solemn promise. No murder guns for you.
Well, I make sure my wife checks those tags in particular, because you never know.
You just never, exactly. Sorry, hon, you can't have this one. Anyway, JD Tuccille and I are talking about the big, beautiful bill, which, again, as we said earlier, has some problems, but one of the beautiful things in it, the most beautiful of the big, beautiful part, is this possibility for delisting silencers. Now, one of the reasons for that is not even an issue of, per se, of the Second Amendment. It is a health issue, and the U.S. government has recognized this. You get into some of the history of this. The Marine Corps has been distributing suppressors, rather, to not just special operations team, to just not the fast movers, but to pretty much everybody who's got a rifle out on the line, because they've discovered that it fixes a lot of the long-term damage for people who are out there shooting guns all the time, right? Give me some details here on the health benefits of what we're talking about.
Yeah, the Marine Corps did a pilot project about, I guess it was about 8 years ago. They started issuing suppressors, and I suspect that the foundations of this were in a lawsuit filed, I think it was about 15 years ago, about the low quality of the ear protection issued by the military. The military got sued over this because a lot of troops came back with more hearing loss than they ought to have. Marine Corps, among others, tested issuing suppressors, and they found, there was less damage to the Marines' ears. And now it's a general issue. They are issuing suppressors. Now, it's the Marine Corps. I don't know the quality of the suppressors. They're probably seconds from the Army. But this is better than not having suppressors. It lowers the sound. Yeah, right? Tell me I'm wrong.
Somebody's hating on my beloved Corps here. What? He's just, come on. What, some crayon eaters design these things or what? I mean, this is some amazing stuff here.
It absolutely is. And of course, this is great for the Marines themselves. I mean, they're going to take less health impact, from using their firearms. They go into combat. It reduces the sound, and this is a good thing. It also makes it easier for them, as was pointed out when they were discussing issuing suppressors. It makes it easier for Marines to conceal their locations, because the sound doesn't travel as far. It doesn't reveal their locations quite so easily.
Right.
So it's a win-win for the Marines, but the issue that applies the most to the general population is that protects your hearing, and that's something that's a common interest to all of us.
Well, and it's so prevalent that you mentioned Norway, Denmark, some of the Scandinavian countries, and I think it's either Norway or I think it's Norway, that basically you can buy a suppressor like at a hardware store. It's like over the counter. Like, they may regulate the hell out of guns and you got to have 16 licenses to have a rifle, but you best go down to the hardware store to buy that suppressor to put on that rifle if you're going to go shooting. It is considered to be polite, and it is considered almost a mandatory safety item. And yet here we get this fear. I mean, I keep the satanic panic phrase keeps popping up at the back of my mind, because that's what it is. It's a lot of hand wringing. And going back to the 30s, this was that same panic, because the newsreels were all about the gangsters using the Tommy guns and the suppressors, and they were shooting, and it was like this huge criminal thing. But historically, suppressors have been used very little, like 1 or 2. In fact, in the last 10 years, according to Dr. John Lott, who was on the program last week, 44 prosecutions in 10 years for crimes with suppressors in a country of 320 million. That's huge.
It's a big deal. Suppressors are not, I mean, they tended up until recently to be kind of niche items. I mean, partially, I'm sure that's because of the tax and the listing requirements, although they're not that hard to make. I mean, if you go online, not that I suggest anyone do that without using Tor and a VPN, and look up the directions for making a suppressor, you'll find a lot of directions that are very effective. But no, they're not. They're not a gangster's go-to. Criminals get in, they get out. They generally use a black market firearm to do it, and they're not looking for something that's going to extend the size of it, double it, or more, make it more easily detectable. When they plan on getting out of the liquor store, they're knocking over immediately anyway. So no, this is not something that's heavily used in crime. But there was a panic back in the 30s. I mean, you had the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. You had all these Hollywood movies about gangsters. You had Prohibition. I mean, all this stuff really came out of Prohibition, which superpowered organized crime. And rather than admit that Prohibition had been the deciding factor behind making organized crime a major factor in American life, they said guns are bad, and passed legislation to that effect. So that's how we ended up with that. That's exactly the same sort of tactic we still see in our legislation today.
Well, and really, you can go back to Prohibition, as John Ross has written about in his book Unintended Consequences. You can go back and look to see that the unintended consequences of Prohibition actually led to the restrictions of firearms rights in the country, because this was 1933. Prohibition had just ended. You had a whole department of people who worked for the federal government as revenuers, right? Revenuers. And they were out of a job. And so that's where the NFA came in, because you had all these feds that were looking for a job, and this was the perfect opportunity to transition them from searching for illegal booze to searching for a shotgun that was an inch too short, which is what the whole 1934 the U.S. v. Miller was all about. That was the deciding case in the NFA, was U.S. v. Miller. It was about a shotgun that was 1 inch too short. And this is where we are today. And the panic continues. You mentioned Chris Murphy. He has gone on and waxed poetic about how all these murders have happened and all these things and all these shooting. It's just drivel. It's just BS, I guess, is what I can say on the radio. That's all it's been this whole time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Chris Murphy talks about mass shootings as if all of a sudden somebody who does not intend to come out of the situation alive, because these mass shooters don't intend on surviving by and large what they do, as if they're going to suddenly start screwing on suppressors because of his fear that they will then be able to silently kill one person at a time, and the next victim won't have heard the gunshots. First, obviously, we know that's not true. The gunshots are still very loud. And second, these shooters, the ones he pretends to be so concerned about, the mass shooters, don't intend to escape notice. They want to make a big splash. They leave manifestos. They want to be noticed in the biggest way possible. Suppressors aren't part of that plan. So Chris Murphy is making a lot of, hubbub because his base doesn't know about firearms. He probably has very little knowledge of firearms, but that doesn't matter to either of them. Feeding that fear and buying the votes with this pandering is what he's after, not anything that has any basis in reality.
Right. Well, and at the core of the matter here is that suppressors are, and the government's finally admitting this, are protected by the Second Amendment. The U.S. Department of Justice just said that. I mean, they actually said just that, right?
Yeah, this was interesting. I mean, there's a lawsuit against the federal government over the restrictions on suppressors, and initially the Fifth Circuit had come out and said that recognizing the federal government's stance, the federal government's original stance, that suppressors are not covered by the Second Amendment. They're not protected by the Second Amendment. The federal government, because this case has started under the Biden administration, has since adjusted its stance to say that the suppressors are covered by the Second Amendment, but that the limitations on them are reasonable and don't rise to the level of violating the Second Amendment. So they adjusted the stance, and the Fifth Circuit took the extraordinary measure of rescinding its original opinion and granting that, yes, suppressors are covered by the Second Amendment. The question now is whether the regulation of them rises to the level of violating the Second Amendment. I would argue that pretty much everything that restricts a firearm violates the Second Amendment. It's like we can have a little bit of censorship. It won't violate the First Amendment. I think we all recognize that's nonsense. Well, the same thing should apply with the Second Amendment.
Well, and the thing is that they've always done an end run around this. In fact, that's how they got around it in 1934, was they said, this is not a restriction. This is a taxation scheme, right? That's really what it was all about, a taxation scheme. And you actually break a little bit of that down because it was ironic in US v. Miller. He had a Sears and Roebuck shotgun that was, again, an inch too short. Well, that shotgun at Sears and Roebuck cost $5 and they wanted him to pay a $200 tax on it, which today is, $4,600, $4,800 in today's dollar. So if you were going to buy a $500 shotgun today and have to pay 10 times that in the actual tax, but that's how they got around it, by saying Congress has the ability to tax these things. It's not a restriction, it's a tax.
Yeah, I mean, and this is actually probably the only benefit we get from inflation, which is that when the federal government is dumb enough to set a fixed fee or a fixed tax in dollar terms, over time, inflation of the value of the dollar will erode it to the point where now people can afford to buy suppressors, because the tax is, relatively low, $200 compared to the multiple was over 20 times, as you pointed out, back in the 30s relative to the value of the dollar now. Yeah, I mean, that's how they worked around it. They called it a tax. They said that a tax isn't a restriction, nonsense, and that the registration was, not much of an intrusion into people's rights. It's still a big deal. I mean, if you want to own a suppressor now and then pass it on to your kids, you have to run through all the paperwork again, or else set up a firearms trust and have the firearms trust own it and hire a lawyer to get that done. I was actually going to do that, and then now I'm kind of waiting to see where this legislation goes.
No, I've been thinking about an NFA trust for a long time, but I've just kept putting it off, and maybe now, because I mean, I don't care about necessarily the machine guns, but the short barrel rifles and the suppressors was always kind of the attractive thing, but I've been putting it off, and maybe we'll get around it. We're coming up on the next break, and so now we're going to talk about where the BBB, the Big Beautiful Bill, is right now. The latest from the Senate parliamentarian yesterday. They made some announcements, and what does it mean, and where do you think we go from here? JD Tuccille is our guest. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We return with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we are back in the break. Let me gotta make a change here. Gotta mash this here, put that over there. Okay. JD Tuccille is our guest, Reason Magazine. That's actually a book I haven't thought about in a while. Have you ever read John Ross's Unintended Consequences?
I have a first edition copy of it. Yeah.
Sorry, had you muted there for a second. I don't even know if it's still in print.
It's been in years now.
Yeah, I have. I don't know if it's still. If you could find one, folks out there could find one. It's an excellent. I mean, it's about this thick. I mean, it is full of. It's a fictionalized story, but it is full of history of firearms, the NFA, the Gun Control Act. It's got a fascinating look at how the GCA, the 1968 Gun Control Act, is actually modeled off of the legal language that was in Nazi Germany prior to Kristallnacht in World War II. And it was how much of that is copied almost verbatim out of some of those things, which, I mean, it's a true story. There's some crazy stuff in there. We have a really interesting history in this country with gun control, since we have guns baked into our DNA, yet at the same time, we've got a political class that is just frustrated and or terrified that the citizenry has the ability to have some self-determination in that way.
Oh, I think that's because our political class has more in common with the political class across the world than it does with the American people, by and large. The American people diverge in their political culture from that of Europe. My ancestors got out of Europe as hard and fast as they could. And I think it's the case with a lot of Americans in order to make a different life here under different rules. People who exercise power and feel comfortable that they're insulated from the results of laws, the impact of those laws, have less concern about that and probably have more in common among each other across national borders, I think, than they do with the people over whom they rule. So I think that's why we see a lot of these things that are like Chris Murphy, where you were like, who is this person and why is he so ignorant about the country over which he governs? That's because he doesn't care about it. He has more in common with a lord in London or a member of parliament in Paris than he does with the American people.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with that. And as I've said, and I think as you came on, I was talking about the reason why, Firearms Friday came into being all those years ago was because, one, I was trying to demystify the firearm because we were being inundated by news media and entertainment industry showing how, Johnny was a good boy until he somehow ended up with a gun and it corrupted him, right? No, Johnny was a thug who now had power in his hands and could exercise his thuggery. That was kind of how that went out. But also the fact that the gun and firearms in general are really the one thing that has held back the growth and the of the federal government and the restrictions on liberty, because they know they can only go so far before some people go, thanks, but no thanks. I can push back, right? I mean, that's kind of that implicit threat is really what has kept us as free as we are today.
Yeah, I mean, it's implicit, and I think in some cases it's fully understood by federal agents. There were a couple of quotes during the whole Waco debacle back in the 90s. Where I remember one federal agent being quoted as saying, if the American people, there's only so many thousand of us, referring to his agency, and I forget whether he was ATF or FBI, he said, if the American people ever found out what went down here, we're dead. The assumption there is that they kind of governed on the sufferance and they exercise power on the sufferance of the American people. The American people are armed. We do have the power, should we ever come together and organize to do something about the way we're misruled, the way we're mistreated. And occasionally someone does assert that. I mean, there was that great case in Texas where the cops kicked in a wrong door. The guy inside had no idea what it was, and he ended up shooting one of the officers, and it was ruled a justifiable shooting. They didn't announce themselves. They got the wrong place, and they got the wrong guy, and he had the right to defend himself. So, yes, I mean, the American people being armed and having the ability to oppose the government makes us very different in a lot of ways than people elsewhere.
Yeah, no, and that's how I like it. Quite honestly, I like to be able to know that if the federal government steps over the line, and that's what Jefferson and others talked about in their writings, was that this was that implicit check holding government accountable. And it's one of the reasons why many of the elected officials are so uncomfortable about this, because they have a plan. They know better than us how to do everything. And us pesky, rugged individualists are just getting in the way, but they can't push us further than they can. That's why it's been so incremental over the years instead of all in one fell swoop, and that's really what happened with the 1934. Like you said, they originally were going to outlaw handguns. And there was such a pushback that they had to change their tune.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that kind of pushback, the federal government has always faced occasional revolts. They tend to get kind of brushed under the cover a little bit, but there have been regional revolts and local revolts across the country that slapped the state back a little bit, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing. It reminds the people who's in charge.
All right, we're 10 seconds out. JD Tuccille, our guest, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, do it all. Here we go. Let's get to it right now.
What the hell's an assault weapon? What isn't? If I assault you with a penguin, doesn't that make it an assault weapon? Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right, we're continuing now. JD Tuccille is our guest, Reason Magazine. He's a contributing editor over there at Reason. He was writing specifically about the delisting of NFA items in the big, beautiful bill. Now, when you wrote this article a few days ago, We didn't know where it was going. It's going to the Senate. We didn't know what was going to happen. And then yesterday, the Senate parliamentarian, who, by the way, has no constitutional authority, is simply a person who says, well, this is how we've always done it, so this is the way we're always going to do it, has said that the reconciliation process should not include the NFA delisting because it just doesn't follow propriety or whatever. So that's kind of a blow to those of us who've been watching this, JD. What's your take on this, and where do we go from here?
Strictly speaking, in terms of what the budget reconciliation process is supposed to be.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, JD.
No problem. Strictly speaking, in terms of what the budget reconciliation process is supposed to be, in terms of, I mean, this is supposed to talk about the budgetary impact of the bill. She might have a point. She probably does. The NFA stuff is extraneous to the budgetary issues. It doesn't have anything to do with spending matters. It's something that was slipped in as a sop to people like us. And I like it. I like the fact that it's in there, but it's not really a budgetary issue. So she probably has a point. But you're right. I mean, it's a
taxation issue, though, right? I mean, it is a taxation issue.
Well, that's arguably it's a taxation issue, even if we all know it's actually a gun control issue.
Right.
But yeah,
I'm just trying to use their argument back against them, JD, right? Because they're saying this has nothing to do with gun control. This is a tax. So, I mean, if it's a tax, then it should be covered under a budgetary bill.
And that's exactly right. As if the original federal argument is going to hold that it's just a tax issue, then yes, that really should be budgetary. But I mean, you're right. The Senate parliamentarian has an odd position. There's nothing about it in the Constitution. If I remember right, it was set up, and the rules under which she works were set up by Harry Reid when he was, leader of the Senate. So this is just kind of one of those things that the Senate allows to go on and limits itself by. Whether they're going to continue to be bound by it, I have no idea. But right now, it looks like it's going to take a little bit of the fun out of the bill if it stands.
There is still some discussion as to whether or not they could force it through, because, as I said, again, the parliamentarian is not some kind of constitutional or binding issue. But at the same time, then it becomes kind of a nuclear option thing where it could be. If you unleash this now, future Congresses could again utilize this in another way. So it is kind of a double-edged sword at that point.
Yeah, this is comparable to the Senate filibuster. I mean, what's the filibuster? It's just a tradition they developed. But the same with the parliamentarian. But you're right. If they decide, you know what, we're not going to be bound by this advisor, because she has an advisory position. She can't tell them what to do. If they decide they're not going to be bound by that means future Senate's not bound by it either. And they have to decide if they want that.
So where do we go from here? I know that you talk about that this is going to be fixed, whether it's through legislation or litigation. So where do we go from here? Have we lost all hope if it doesn't go into the big, beautiful bill?
No, the big thing is the litigation. The litigation is saying that it's unconstitutional, and the better outcome might well be this going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court saying, you know what, you're right. The federal government has already conceded that suppressors are protected by the Second Amendment. And the fact of the matter is that requiring something that is a right under the Second Amendment to have to pay a special tax, but also be registered with the government as if it's a privilege, violates the Second Amendment and then voids that requirement in its entirety. That would probably be the best outcome. So the better outcome is probably the litigation, if that proceeds through to the end and prevails before the Supreme Court, which I think it has a good chance of doing.
Yeah, I mean, it would be not, although after Vanderstock and some of the other bill, I'm not so sure. I mean, that's the thing with the Supreme Court. I think a lot of us were like, after Heller, after McDonald, and then after Bruin, we're like, okay, man, we can do more. We can get it. And then we watch Vanderstock get riddled full of bullet holes with Comey Barrett and Kavanaugh and you're like, wait a second, that seems inconsistent. So it is a little troubling that that they could make a decision that maybe doesn't break our way in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about the Supreme Court is that even when you think it's on your side, the people who sit on it are still by and large wealthy, established graduates of the Ivy League schools. They're part of the political class. And I think that they get nervous when they talk about changing things too much, about rocking the boat more than is, to an extent that's beyond their comfort zone. There are a couple on the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas in particular, I think, who don't mind rocking the boat and think that maybe shaking things up is a good thing. That doesn't mean I always agree with him, but I think he's more comfortable than most members of the Supreme Court with simply saying, well, the way things have been done is not necessarily good, and we can change it in a big way. But they come from the political class, and this might be a stretch too far for them. But yeah, Vanderstock is a warning shot that we cannot rely upon the court always to rule in our favor.
So where do you think we go for, again, big, beautiful bill? There's no real telegraphing here what necessarily may happen, but put on your turban and your crystal ball in front of you and here and prognosticate. Where do you think this goes from here, in your opinion, as you've watched this? What do you think happens next?
Well, the big, beautiful bill in some way is going to pass. The question is, in what form is it going to pass? And a lot of it has to do with the SALT limitations. That's the allowance for state and local taxes to be written off federal taxes. And it's a big sop to high tax states. If they can get the SALT, measures settled in a way that pleases pretty much everybody across the board, I don't know how they're going to do that. But if they get that settled, they'll pass the bill. What's going to be in there, though? I mean, I don't know. I mean, given the relatively recent development on the NFA front and the fact that it's not core to the overall bill, I can easily see them excising that just to get the bill through. Remember, they cannot lose really any votes in the House. They're pretty close in the Senate. I don't see them sacrificing the passage of the bill in order to help loosen the restrictions of gun control. So I think the NFA may end up getting sacrificed in there. So I really have higher hopes for the litigation side.
Steve Gutowski over at The Reload wrote about this yesterday, and he said the Senate's decision, the decision means that the Senate's version of the NFA proposal is likely dead. It's a setback. But Republicans could rerun the proposal through the parliamentarian process in its original form, as they've successfully done with several other provisions that the parliamentarian had initially stripped out. Do you think that they're going to fall back to that? Do you think that they will try that, or will they just let it lie and come back to it?
I could see a Rand Paul trying that. I don't think that there's a lot of enthusiasm on the Senate side the way there is on the House side. For reforming the gun laws. I think Rand Paul's probably the best advocate for that, maybe Mike Lee. So maybe they'll take a run at that, but all the energy right now is in passing the big, beautiful bill. And I think that the NFA provision will probably be a casualty of the need to get that through in some form or another. So I would not count on the Senate taking this up. The energy, the real motivation for changing the law is in the House, not in the Senate. And so I wouldn't count on big changes coming through on this. It was nice to see it in there, but I don't know that it survives.
Well, and I am excited to at least see that there is a national conversation on this, right? I mean, that's really the exciting part, is that this has been so, most people had no idea what the NFA even was, and now you've got people who are throwing around lingo and language and understand that. But are there any cases, you were talking about, you think litigation is the answer here. Are there any cases that are up or even available for review in regards to this? Anything on the docket, or what kind of time frame do you think we're talking about here?
Well, yeah, I mean, the litigation we're referring to before is before the Fifth Circuit. I mean, that case is currently moving forward, and that's where we got the federal government conceding that that suppressors are protected by the Second Amendment. The federal government still argues that the requirements of the NFA are modest, and that therefore they don't violate the Second Amendment. But the nice thing is that it's in the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit tends to be Second Amendment friendly. It tends to have some knowledge of firearms. So that there's a very good chance of getting a positive pro-liberty outcome on this and coming out of the Fifth Circuit, which means that it almost certainly then goes in the direction of the Supreme Court, because that would be a big decision. It would be a hard case for the Supreme Court to neglect. So right. I would assume that I don't know the Fifth Circuit will decide that this is a violation of the Second Amendment, but of all the circuits, it's the one that's most likely to decide that, which means that this case is proceeding through the correct circuit. They filed it in the right court. That's not a surprise. Right. plaintiff, you find a court that you think, or a circuit that you think is going to be friendly to your case. So there's good chance of an outcome, at least up through the appeals level in the Fifth Circuit. And then there's a good chance of it going to the Supreme Court, where we can, as we discussed, hope for a positive outcome.
Well, we're counting on you to keep us informed on this and to stay on top of it. It's like I said, it should be able to just go down and pick one up, just like pick up some extra magazines, some extra ammunition, and a suppressor for my gun to be able to shoot more comfortably and more safely than before. JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine, 90 seconds here. Anything else? What else are you working on right now that folks need to know about?
Well, something I've already worked on is that if you're going to own a gun, training is good. My wife and I just spent a week last month at Gunsight, and there's a lot of good training facilities around the country. I'd recommend that people who are interested in shooting learn the skills. I wrote about it for Reason. I wrote up my experience there. There are other schools too that are of equal quality, and I recommend that you get training and that you learn how to use the tools that we all know and enjoy using.
I see what you did there. Business trip. Deduction.
Business trip indeed.
It's a business trip. I've got to write about this, so let's make it happen. It's great stuff. Reason Magazine. You can find him at reason.com. JD Tuccille, contributing editor over there at Reason, writes about all kinds of good stuff. He's got his newsletter called The Rattler. You can sign up, and it'll drop right into your mailbox every week. JD, as always, my friend, it's good to talk with you. Thanks for coming on board.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, folks, we're out of time. Hour 2 is dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. All right. JD, any final thoughts before we let you go here this morning?
There's a lot going on. It's hard to say that I have only one final thought. So keep an eye out keep an eye on the news, because that's what I'll be writing about. But we live in interesting times, and I think that's a Chinese curse for a reason.
Yeah, that's right. It's, you know what, I always say it's a Chinese proverb, but you're right. I think it's a Chinese curse instead of a proverb. So we're definitely living there for sure. All right, JD, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. I appreciate you and appreciate all you do. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. You take care.
All right, we'll see you soon. All right, JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine, our guest here on the program. How we doing? We're doing okay. We're doing okay. All right. Well, let's continue here in just a moment. I need a hot second. So, you guys, talk amongst yourselves for a minute. Yes, yourselves. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Okay. Sorry, needed to see a man about a horse. All right. Good morning, my friends, and welcome back to the program. Thank you for coming on board and joining us this morning on this beautiful Firearms Friday. I hope you guys have. I hope you didn't miss me too much yesterday. I saw. I put all this stuff out. I'm in the middle of trying to do the show for the radio while I'm trying to fix the technical issues. I did the first 45 minutes of the show basically with my cell phone because my computer was kaput. and finally got everything back up and running. And then I was posting things to Facebook, and I'm like, oh, you can go to the live stream and listen. And then I misspelled my own website address. And so then people were like, it's broken. And I'm like, oh, God. Anyway, yesterday was exciting. Yesterday was exciting. Did I read the chat room yesterday? A little bit. I did scroll through a couple of the comments, but I was in the middle of obviously trying to do the show. I went back and later on saw that I had screwed it up badly. So anyway, I appreciate your guys' persistence and sticking around with this. Somebody said something like, "No, I'm going to have to go rock in a fetal ball because I can't get my fix," or whatever it was, and I had to laugh. I mean, I appreciate you guys coming on every morning. It's so different to do the show without the interaction of the chat room. It's so weird. Because there's no immediate feedback. I'm just talking to myself essentially. When I'm just broadcasting on the radio or doing whatever, it's so strange. It is so, and I've been doing this long enough now, that it's bizarre to basically just do radio the old fashioned way where you're talking in a room and not paying attention to anybody and just basically talking to yourself. So it was interesting. Yesterday was interesting, but boy, I tell you what, I got down inside that computer and I'm just shocked that it was working as well as it was. I really am. I was just like, what? Wow. I mean, because I cleaned it out not too long ago. But where we live now is apparently a little bit dustier. It was a little bit dustier than it was before. So I have to make sure that we up our game and keep the and keep the preventative maintenance cycle up there to make sure it happens. Okay. What else we got here? See what you guys have been talking about. Frank mentioned to me earlier, he asked about if I knew what was going on with the Fox range, and I said I didn't. Apparently, and this is classic. This is an absolute classic. New neighbor bought a house near the Fox range. New owner was told and initialed the part that declared there was a rifle range next to the property. Now the new owner does not want to hear the shooting. He wants the lords of the borough to shut down the range. Of course they do. I mean, this is like one of those things where you get a neighborhood that's got a junky yard in it or a junkyard in it. And because there's a junkyard in it, then, one of the new property owners got a great deal on the property. And the second that they take possession, now they start to lobby to shut down to get the junkyard cleaned up and do everything else because that they want to improve the value of the neighborhood. Right? I mean, it's just so disingenuous. I don't know how this person would have any leg to stand on, though, if they signed off on the provision to say, hey, there's a rifle range next door. I don't know how although with the do-gooders on the assembly, I suppose that they very well could be part of the problem. That's it right there. Oh, it's so crazy. All right, here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. Let's do this.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
It's my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Duke Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and live around the world on the interwebs today at michaeldukeshow.com, as well as on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. Thank you for coming on board and joining us this morning. So some interesting headlines from around the country today, although I do need to start off apparently with a story coming out of Fairbanks, which I hadn't heard of yet. Thank you to Frank for giving me some of the particulars. I don't know exactly who it is or where it is or what the status is, but Frank had asked me earlier about whether or not I'd heard about the fervor over the Fox gun range, the Fox shooting range. And I had not, and he gave me a little bit of the rundown. I don't know exactly where it sits at the borough level or anything, but he tells the story of a new neighbor bought a house apparently next to or near the range. The new owner was told about the gun range and initialed the part on the declaration, these property declarations. It said that there was a rifle range next door on the next property over. He said, but he took possession, and now the new owner does not want to hear shooting. And he wants the lords of the borough to shut the range down. And this is just so typical. We hear the stories about the guy who buys a piece of property next to a bush plane runway, right? Because people who bought it, they bought the property, they built out a runway, they were the first ones there. They've got their little Super Cubs or whatever. And then the guy's like, I don't like the airplanes flying over all the time. Or the guy who gets a great deal on a piece of property because there's a junkyard in the neighborhood or a junkie yard in the neighborhood, and he gets a smoking hot deal on it. And then after he buys it, he wants the borough to go in and force the people to clean it up or whatever to increase the property value, even though he got a good deal because of it. Basically coming in as Johnny come late, tail end Sally, Johnny come lately, whatever name you want to attach to it, and basically change the rules now that they're there. And it's astonishing. It's astonishing that this is the attitude that people have. Now, just because he signed the declaration saying he knew it was there, that's also no guarantee, because if he's going in front of the borough, and it could be the platting board or it could be the borough assembly, I don't know where it's at. And maybe, Frank, you can point me towards a story that can tell me where this, where they're trying to do this in borough code. But I mean, it's madness. You are a private property owner. You've done all the right things. You've pulled it all together. In the case of a rifle range, you've got all the safety measures. You've bermed everything up. You've done it all. You've put it all together. You've got all the safety issues you can. You got made sure that there was declarations on all the properties around you. You did all that, and then some jackwagon comes in and says, well, I don't like what you're doing. Now that I bought my property, I don't like what you're doing, so now you're going to have to stop it. It's nuts. It's nuttier than squirrel poo. So we'll have to see where this goes. I don't know where I don't know. I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know at what portion if this is in front of the platting board or the borough or whatever. But if he's going to try and use the borough code against the range, which is what Frank says they're trying to do, well, good luck with that. First of all, if it's GU land, general use land, the only thing that's prohibited without some kind of special certification, the last time I checked, was a nuclear waste facility or a nuclear reactor or a pig farm. Those are the two things that had to get special permission on general use property. But with this assembly in Anchorage right now, the assembly that's or in Fairbanks right now, that is mirroring the Anchorage assembly in many ways, then we'll have to see. I mean, this is the same borough assembly that Miguel's now telling me pissed away $40,000 last night for a software tracking system to track citizens who make a living from Airbnb or VBRO, the short-term rentals. So they spent $40,000 to track those citizens to make sure they're not getting away with murder. I mean, I don't know. This is why we can't have nice things. This is why we can't have nice things right there. That's the reason right there. So yeah, somebody pointed out, well, we were talking about the big, beautiful bill and the Senate parliamentarian and everything. And somebody pointed out, well, the vice president can override the parliamentarian. Well, it's true. But it's unlikely because, again, it goes back to that nuclear option thing we talked about, where once that cat's out of the bag, you can't really put it back in, because if they decide to kind of do this and go against the parliamentarian here, what happens when the pendulum swings the other way and you get a democratically controlled Congress who have got, murder in their eyes and want to kill the Second Amendment in that way? They could just do it through reconciliation instead of, so it's kind of a Pandora's box. You don't not to necessarily open that thing up, right? Once it's out, you can't really walk it back. It could be abused by future administrations, including those who are very gun hostile. That's a problem. That's a problem. What we should be doing is we should be encouraging our senators, Murkowski and Sullivan, to vote in favor of the bill. Now, we already kind of know that Murkowski is not really on board with this. So, I mean, I guess good luck there. And that just means that we need to remember this, in the next election cycle as these people come up for re-election. Not that, I don't want to necessarily be a one-issue one-issue guy, but I am kind of a one-issue guy. That's, if you look back at it and I look back at the presidential midterms, one of the main reasons I voted against Kamala Harris was not only did I think many of her other policies were bunk, but her gun policy for me was a non-starter, period, full stop. And although Trump had a checkered track record with gun control, he had been saying all the right things and doing all the right things. And so at that point, he was the better of the two choices. But I never in a million, even if I had liked many of the other policies that Harris was talking about, I never would have voted for her based on just that one policy alone, the gun policy. That would have been it for me. That would have been the end right there for sure. Another big story that was in the news, but it was kind of in and out of the news. You heard about it for just a hot minute and then it was gone. In fact, I don't think it's only been 2 days. And let me see if it's even still up on any of the national, I'm looking here to see if there's even, any comments. There's nothing on Drudge. Let me just see, even Fox News, which would be, I guess we would consider to be one of the friendliest things. Is Fox News even, no, it's not even up on the front pages of Fox News or CNN or any of the other ones. So, I mean, this just happened the day before yesterday. Now, if this was some kind of shooting where it actually happened it actually, expanded out and went on, and this would have been in the headline, in the news cycle for days. days. But it didn't happen. Why? Because of an armed citizen who stopped this mass shooting at the Cross Point Community Church in Michigan. Now, it was interesting that most of the news media christened these people as security guards, or they said they were church staff. And what's ironic is that it's a minor tweaking of the truth, right? But it's not the truth. The truth is that these were all volunteer security. These were church members. And actually, it was really Scripps News Service that really got it right. It's a volunteer security team. It's made up of members of the congregation itself. Scripps reported that the armed citizens were the one who stopped the attack. Volunteer security team members stopped an attempted mass shooting at a Michigan church on Sunday. No parishioners were killed. Thanks in part to Jay Trombley and other safety team members who are all average citizens with no military or police experience, but they have undergone extensive training in the event they encounter an active shooter. He said Sunday's nightmare underscores a harsh reality. Now, all the anti-gunners, they refuse to acknowledge that there was a safety team at all, but because they can't. They can't say that it was a good guy with a gun, an average citizen who saved they've got to say that it's a security guard or a church staff member or something else. What if that led to other churches doing the same thing, creating volunteer safety teams or sending their safety teams to active shooter training, or, inspired someone else to start, maybe carrying a firearm and exercising their rights? We can't have that. What was interesting, though, was that Jay Trombley gives he walks through this thing, and it's super interesting, and he gives it up to God in this, because this is what he said. He said, "I heard a noise, thought it was mechanical at first, turned to see people running, asked them through a door what had happened. I thought it was in the cry room, and that a young woman said AR-15, and I said, where? She pointed. I headed in that direction." He said, "We found out that evil came to our door, but God's hand of protection was right over us. So many things happen that can only be God driven. That the parishioner shows up late. Another parishioner had engaged him with had basically smacked him with his pickup truck, trying to slow him down." He said that the double pane window that he was looking at, the double pane window stopped 5 rounds, that I was fairly certain where I was standing to look at the wall behind me to see the impact, to see where the rounds from his rifle traveled and impacted. He said, he says, God's hand was protecting me. So he's standing in the window. The window takes 5 rounds and should have gone right through him. Right? It's an interesting thing, and I'm looking forward to pulling some more video down and looking through some of this stuff over here as we go forward. But again, an armed attacker stopped by a private citizen. You just, again, don't tell me that one armed person can't make a difference, because they can. No matter what Giffords or Bloomberg or anybody else says, Shannon Watts, it doesn't matter. One armed citizen can make a difference. One unarmed citizen can make a difference. It's just harder. This is why we go forth armed. This is why we go forth prepared, to be able to help out in situations like this, to protect ourselves, protect our loved ones, etc. That's what this is about. This is a good story. But again, you're not seeing it anywhere in the news. It happened on Sunday. We were still reporting about it on Monday, and then by Tuesday, it was crickets. Crickets. You wonder how that all comes out that way. All right, we got to go. We're coming up on the break. We got one more segment of gun stuff, and then we're going to dive into it with Willie for the weekend movie review. We'll see where it goes from there. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes on Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Let's make sure we're running. Okay, we're running everywhere. It's all good. All right, let me nobody voted for the parliamentarian, said Kim. No, I mean, I agree, Kim. I agree. But again, you have to look at the larger picture in the end game here. Do you want to open it up for that? It's you don't, I don't think you necessarily want to open it up for that. They've restricted themselves. Maybe we should leave it out there at the at the end. Mike, when you get a chance, read on crass ethics thing he brought up when the majority voted against Brett Rotterman's ethics fix last December. Mike, you got to be a little clear here. And I know it's hard sometimes because you guys are talking on your phone. Half the time I'm interpreting what you're saying because it's, autocorrect, spell check, things like that. What exactly are you talking about here? I'm not sure. So there you go. Great for that armed citizen. That's why we all carry in Alaska. What is an average citizen these days, says Frank. Just wondering because of the education system we have these days. I mean, I know that's a little bit, I'll call David and we'll see if we can get David on the program. David's a friend of mine. We'll see if we can get him on to talk about it maybe next week. Teresa says the window manufacturer at that church is maybe going to use the incident to market their windows. I mean, could you imagine? Put these in your bulletproof windows. These are bulletproof. Yeah. Kim says, I don't think Senator Thune would allow the vice president to overrule. I don't know. I'm concerned that you don't want to get, I'm concerned you don't want to get ahead of the power curve on that. Because that's again, you don't want to open up Pandora's box on that. That could be problematic, to say the least. Problematic. As well. Supreme Court limits use of nationwide injunctions. Is that a new decision that just came out? I'm not paying attention that much right now. Let me see what Drudge says. Curbs injunctions that block Trump's birth citizenship plan. 6-3. Barrett rebukes Jackson's extreme opinion. Ooh. Newsom sues Fox for defamation. $787 million in is what he's seeking in damages, and an apology from Jesse Waters, apparently. You can't make this stuff up, man. You cannot make this stuff up. Oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? All right, let me close that, and that. Let me see if there's any new, new gun stuff here. Oh, here's the new story on Plan B on suppressors. We should talk about this here. Cam Edwards is just writing about it. Let's see. John Cornyn, he's confident the bill can be amended to eliminate. Okay. Gun control officer taking a victory lap. Let's see. All right. We'll see. We'll see what's going on here. All right. We're 20 seconds out right now. We'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes from here. Nothing new really in this article, so we'll come back to that probably next week after we have a little bit of an idea of what's going on with there. But let's continue.
What the hell is an assault weapon? Does that mean that if we hurt your feelings, you should consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can accept that. Here's Michael Dukes. Kind of a dick, but somewhat funny.
All right. Thank you for coming on board and joining us today on this beautiful Firearms Friday. Oh, man. So many things happening out there. And, of course, next week is the 4th of July, Independence Day. And so we will have some Firearms Friday stuff on Thursday next week because I will be off on Friday. In fact, I will be in Seldovia on Friday, emceeing all the 4th of July things over there. They've invited me to come over there and be the MC for the day for all their big events, including their salmon shuffle, their ducky race. They said they had me at pancake feed. They said there's a pancake feed in the morning. I'm like, I'm there. Give me a pancake feed. I'm all about the pancakes. Anyway, it's all going to be happening over in Seldovia, and Jenny Chissus from the Seldovia Chamber is going to come on Monday and tell us about all the events that are happening there. That should be fun. But we're going to be off the air next Friday. It'll be alternate programming for the holiday weekend, taking a big 3-day week. Well, I'm going to be working, but it'll be a 3-day weekend for next Friday. So just a heads up. Next Friday we won't be on the air, but Thursday we will have some firearm stuff that we'll go over just because it's a deal. Can I get a picture with Chris O in Seldovia? Sure. I'm sure I'll meet Chris while we're over there. It'll do. Music only, all over the place on all the other stations. But yeah, you'll hear alternate programming wherever we're going to do it. So I get a little sidetracked. I didn't have any of the chat with me yesterday during the show because I didn't, everything was all screwed up, and that's so weird. And now I'm just being all distracted by the chat today. So it's great. So I was going to talk about this story in Rhode Island, but I don't have the phone lines up. I'd love to talk to Fred about this. So maybe we'll save this for Fred for next Thursday. Maybe we'll see if Fred's listening and he wants to tune in on Thursday. But Rhode Island has now passed some of the most draconian gun laws in the country. They just signed a bill banning the manufacture, sale, and transfer of so-called assault weapons. Now they said that the new law, it's not really a gun ban because it doesn't impact those who currently own their firearms, but violators of the ban, it means if you transfer it's a $10,000 and 10-year prison sentence. So it's not really a ban, but don't you dare. It's not really a ban, but don't you dare. Anyway, we'll save this story for next week for Fred, because I'm sure he's gonna want to sound. I might have to get the bleep filter up for Fred for that one. I'm sure he's gonna be upset about it. But you know what was a really interesting story? Cam Edwards over at Bearing Arms has got it talking about, one of the most stringent places in the U.S. for gun control. It's not where you think. Has a sky-high homicide rate. Where is that? Well, the U.S. Virgin Islands. That's right. It's a territory. It's not a state, but it's, governed by the United States. It has basically the most restrictive gun laws, almost, or I guess now with Rhode Island, some of the most restrictive gun laws in the country. But it has a homicide rate that's higher than Mexico. The newspaper in the Virgin Islands called the Consortium recently declared that the territory, quote, remains one of the most homicide-plagued places on the earth. The rate has hovered near or above 50 per 100,000, on par with Jamaica, 4 times higher than the notoriously violent Mexico for much of the last 20 years, according to data from the Micro Trends Homicide Rate Series. The Virgin Islands statements for 2010 and 2023 counts basically said that the homicide rate is huge. So far in 2025, the U.S. Virgin Islands has experienced 22 homicides, 11 on St. Croix, 9 on St. Thomas, and 2 on St. John, putting the territory on pace for another record year. Now, 50 homicides per 100,000 is not 4 times what, but it's over 2 times what Mexico's homicide rate is for a place that's supposed to be paradise, right? Now, it's a democratically controlled area. It's all Democrat controlled. And back in 2019, the U.S. Virgin Islands established an Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And how they've been doing? Well, the executive director was asked to appear before a legislative panel this week to talk about it, and he pretty much he didn't think there was anything necessarily wrong with their current policy. He's like, this is all retaliatory. This is emotional outbursts. This is all this other stuff. And, we're attempting to educate the community on de-escalation and conflict resolution. I mean, this is the answer. Interestingly enough, the governor of the Virgin Islands, he actually offered up a surprising take on this. He said, basically, quit making it so difficult to legally buy a gun. He said, what happens is when you tell somebody no, the temptation is more. The states with the toughest gun laws get the highest homicide rates. I think we should move to a place where we open gun ranges that are legal. We make it easier for people to license and carry firearms. He said, they're trying to protect themselves or feel protected. That's why they carry firearms. He said the percentage of Virgin Islanders who carry unregistered weapons for reasons of ill intent are very small. The majority just want to have something to protect themselves and to feel protected. I mean, this is from a Democrat. I mean, that's some interesting take right there. Stop making it so difficult to legal, because even if what the director of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention said, that these are retaliatory homicides, some people have an axe to grind with somebody else, some are emotional outbursts, some are committing crimes. If the legal law-abiding citizens could defend themselves, this would probably happen a lot less, right? I mean, you'd think that if they had a chance of walking in on somebody and they wanted to throw down and that person happened to be able to be armed and be able to protect themselves, that would go. But again, this just goes to show you another failure of the gun control movement. Strongest laws in the country, highest homicide rate, higher than Mexico. And that's a high bar to shoot for at that point. High bar. All right. Well, we got to go. We got more coming up. Willie Waffle is next. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. I mean, it's just there's some madness there, It's just some madness. Can I get a picture with Chris O? I don't know. Chris is here. Oh, Chris, I see Chris. Yeah, Chris, come out and see me. I'll be at there's only 12 people in Soldovia, right? So it'll be fine. He can find me. I'm kidding. Don't everybody get mad at me at once. Melissa says, we're off the air next Friday too. Music only. How did you guys get that? You guys get a solstice weekend off, and then you get 2 weeks later, you get the 4th. Man, I need to talk to your boss. Let's see. Rhode Island is a communist state, says Joel. I mean, wow. Miguel says, you notice citizens are moving to locations who aren't against guns or have any crazy gun laws. I mean, there is a big movement on that for sure. Absolutely. Let's see. So much freedom. Teresa on YouTube says, people been shooting off booming firecrackers before everyone else is awake, so want to be bugle boys, I guess. Well, wake up. Good morning. Chris has got to go, or Miguel's got to go get himself twisted. He's going to go see a chiropractor. Good morning. Perry Wally is bougie. Ooh, girl. Girl. Chris says he's going to find me. Ooh, don't threaten me. And Melissa's like, and we still had to do our shows on solstice. Oh, you cry me a river. Cry me a river, sister. Cry me a river. Yeah, where's Rhode Island Fred this morning? I ran out of time. With all the technical issues, I didn't want to stress the system by trying to turn the phones on and do everything else. So we'll see if we can get Fred back on next week. Teresa just asked, where's Fred? We'll see what happens. Brian said, just wait for the New York City refugees to flood the rest of the country. I mean, that's one of the reasons it's good to live up here, because they're the least likely to come all the way up here for it, right? The least likely at this point. We'll see what happens. But least likely to come all the way up here for that. Whew. Okay, well, I'm all caught up. This morning. Oh, let me fix my stuff here. And oops, I got text messages. Some people send me random text messages here. Okay, let me get things set up for Willie and make sure that's up. This is, it's a technical rodeo. Yeah, admit it. You were taken over by I was overtaken by the Dust Bunny militia. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't figure out why my computer was acting so weird. And then I saw one screen flash that said something about overheat. And so I'm like, well, I just cleaned this like a year ago. You don't usually, it's just a year ago. It shouldn't have been that big a deal. And that computer would just not stay running. It would boot up and then it would just go to. So anyway, after the show, I got into it, and man, I don't know how many of you are technically minded, but the radiator over the top of the processor, which is it's got a bunch of fins in it, and it was just packed full of white stuff, and it was fuzzy wuzzies and dust and dirt, and it was crazy. It's just crazy, man. The whole thing was crazy. Anyway, so took me 25 minutes to get it all cleaned out and cleaned up and everything else. And it dropped the temperature of the computer by 35%. So there you go. It was good. A year? Yeah, no, you don't have to get in. It's a sealed system. You don't have to get into them any more than Terry's like, a year? Yeah, no, you don't have to. I mean, you're not in there every week vacuuming out your computer, right? I mean, that's just not what you do. But maybe now I'll be doing it every 6 months because it was full. It was full. Anyway, so that's the reason why all the people on the podcast only got an hour and 10 minutes of podcast yesterday instead of the full 2 hours. We did end up talking with Mike Shower. For those of you who listen on the stream, I don't know if you heard it on the stream or not, but I did get the stream up and we got some of the other things, but we'll see what's going on there. All right. We're about ready to rejoin the radio. We'll get back to it. Here we go. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Okay, we are ready to go. The weekend is upon us. Willie Waffle joins us for our weekend movie and entertainment review. As always, Mr. Waffle, welcome to the program. Thank you for coming in and joining us. Good stuff today.
Huzzah!
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 It's almost the weekend. So we got some news. We got some cool stuff. Maybe we should start off with the James Bond news. I want to hear about this. There's some new announcements you were saying for James Bond. What's going on?
Yeah, so while there's been a ton of rumors about who's going to be the next James Bond, who are they going to hire, there was a hire today for the person who will direct the next James Bond movie. And this is big. This is massive. It will be Denis Villeneuve. You say you might not see the name? Yeah, you know the name. I know you know the name. This is the guy who directed the Blade Runner 2049 and all of the Dune movies.
Yeah.
And he's ready to bring it. It was the typical announcement, right? Oh, he's loved James Bond forever. He's so excited. He wants to keep it traditional, but he also wants to take it in new, interesting stories, blah, 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 blah. He's going to make a good movie, people. This guy knows what he's doing.
That's right.
Guy knows how to deliver the action. This guy is going to make a really good, really, really good Bond movie.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. This should be excellent. His visuals are always great and stunning, and he does some good stuff. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think he'd be good. Now, who do you think is going to be the James Bond? Because I keep hearing Henry Cavill's name being thrown around, but what do you think?
I don't think it's going to be him. Honestly, I think they're going to go with a lesser named younger guy so that they can build him over 2, 3, maybe even doing 4 movies, rather than, Cavill's a good actor.
Right.
And I would be very, very happy with him as James Bond. I think their concern is that, he's a little bit older.
Right.
How many of these does he have left in him? Daniel Craig talked about this. He said, by that last movie, he's like, I'm just beat up. He's like, I am too old to do this.
Right.
This is too hard to do at my age. And I think that, there's a big sentiment that, Amazon wants to bring. I think they want to bring in somebody younger so they can really maximize the franchise.
How about
number one?
Go ahead.
I think they also want to bring in an unknown that will be their Bond. Like, he will always be thought of as the Amazon James Bond. Like, okay. I think that matters to them.
I was wondering if Aaron, what's his face from Kraven the Hunter? I know he'd been
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yeah, Aaron Taylor Johnson. Yep. A little bit dirtier, not quite so polished as Cavill, kind of more of the Daniel Craig style. I thought maybe he would also be an excellent one, but I mean, I guess we'll have to see. We'll have to see what comes out of that. We can pontificate all we want, but none of that's going to answer the questions.
Yeah, and I think he might be back in the running because he is the star of 28 Years Later, and showed how good he is as an actor, and reminded people that he could be in a movie that people want to go see. I think that the strike against him he was really heavily considered by the Broccolis before they sold to Amazon. And I think because he was their choice, he might not be Amazon's choice.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll have to see where it goes from there. All right. So that's good news. We'll know more here, hopefully, in the future on this. On to other news. We've got Mobland got renewed, man. It got renewed, which, it had to get renewed. It had to. It was such a good story. And it left you at such a good point where you could be like, okay, where do we go now? This is madness.
Well, in addition to being a really, really good TV show, it's also been extremely successful. So yes, Paramount Plus has picked up season number 2 of Mobland. Since debuting in March, it spent 6 weeks in the streaming top 10 shows.
Oof.
And it is the second most successful Paramount Plus series, only behind Billy Bob Thornton's Landman, which is also a really, really good show.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Yep.
No, we can't wait. We watched it and we were like, that was it. Oh, it's so good.
I want more.
I know, that's the thing.
More.
I just want more. Some sad news for fans of the Food Network. I heard this last week and I was like, oh, that's just so tragic. Chef Ann Burrell has passed away.
Yeah. Tragically was just, I don't know how you put it. She was found by her husband. We still don't know exactly what happened. But she passed away in Brooklyn, and the Food Network did a nice little tribute to her this week. Plus, she has, as a lot of people know, her big thing was she was the host of Worst Cooks in America, which is a really good show. Like I've always enjoyed that show. I think it's very funny. I think it's really great the way that she teaches people how to become cooks and teaches them skills in the kitchen, things that, like, when you're sitting home, you're watching, you're learning as well. Well, she had already filmed the last season. They didn't think it was going to be the last season, but what will now be the last season, she had already filmed it. Her co-host is going to be another chef, Gabe Bertaccini. And it will air in July. Late July is when it's going to start, and they're going to take it out there. And they usually have a theme now. Like when they first started, it was just like really, really bad cooks, and then they started bringing in all the celebrities. Well, now this one is going to be called what they say is talented and terrible. These are people who are performers in various different ways, who can't cook,
right,
and now will learn how to cook.
top of their class on one side, but can't cook, can't boil water, right? I mean, that's what it comes
not
down to.
even close.
Yeah. Well, it's a good way. I mean, it's good to go out and have a good legacy like that. I mean, it's sad. It's a sad thing to see because she is funny and she's always really, really, really well received. But okay, so that's coming out in July, and that will be her final season. Obviously, it'll be the final season of Worst Cooks in America. So we'll be looking for that come July on the Food Network. All right, Oscars. I guess some people have been invited to be part of the Academy.
Yeah, this is always one of my favorite stories of the year because it makes me go, "Oh dear God, that person's getting an Oscar vote and I'm not." Yeah. So, so obviously everyone focuses in on a lot of the actors who get invited to become Oscar voters. And, it's usually pretty customary. Like if you've been nominated for an Oscar that year, you're probably going to get an invitation. And that happened with Monica Barbaro from A Complete Unknown and Top Gun Maverick. It happened with what's her name? Oh God, I'm blanking on Mikey Madison from Honora. She got nominated. But there were a couple names in here that really kind of grabbed my attention, and in a very positive way. I'm actually very happy about this.
Okay.
All right, here we go. We have who will now become an Oscar voter, Dave Bautista, the WWE wrestler who's become an actor, who's done really good work.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell
has.
you, this guy is a really good actor. So he has been invited to come and vote and be part of the Academy. And there's one more, and I'm trying to find it out because I was like, oh yeah, here it is. Aquaman is going to be an Oscar voter.
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa. Okay, that dude is gonna vote for all the coolest stuff.
Yeah. Well, finally, we get the everyman who will then vote
That's
for the
right.
coolest stuff. All right. Well, that's good. One vote won't make a difference, but it will be definitely be interesting to see. But Willie still didn't get an invite.
Yeah.
He's Critics' Choice
No,
Award.
I didn't.
You know, he's a goal. You know, he could, but can't get on the Oscar panel. I don't know why.
But I will say this: whatever Oscar voter screenings Momoa and Batista go to, you want to be there because those are going to be the fun
Oh
ones.
yeah, no,
That's
absolutely.
where the party's going to be.
Absolutely. All right, final story for this week. It's a Karate Kid story, which again I haven't watched the new series of Cobra Kai or anything else. That's on my to watch list here, but some crazy stuff happening with some of the co-stars of Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid. Give me the rundown here.
This story is so beyond crazy. So it is Martin Kove, who is best known as Sensei John Kreese from the Karate Kid movies and Cobra Kai. I mean, this is like his role. Like this is the one that defined him. When you see him, you go, yeah, that's the Karate Kid guy. Well, he was at the Summer Con in Washington State doing an appearance, and they had another member of the Cobra Kai cast there, his co-star Alicia Hannah Kim. For those of you who are familiar with the show, she was the sensei of the Cobra Kai from overseas, from the Far East. It was her grandfather who started Cobra Kai, and so she ended up playing a role in the last couple of seasons. Well, she saw him as she entered the convention and tapped him on the shoulder, at which point Martin Kove bit her on the arm.
What? He just turned around and just bit her on the arm.
Bit her on the arm. And as she kind of screamed out in pain, he then started kissing that area. And the police got involved because, she was assaulted. The man bit her arm. And he's trying to say I was just trying to be playful. I was just trying to be funny. I apologize for doing it that way. But the police said, Mr. Kove, we think it'd be best if you left. So he was escorted out of SummerCon over the weekend. And I think that the rest of his career, people are just going to know him as the arm biter.
The arm biter.
You don't live this down. You don't live this
That's
down.
so crazy. I mean, why? I mean, it's just
exactly.
It's crazy. It's crazy. All right. Well, let's move on to the streams here. We got about 4 minutes. We got Trainwreck, the Netflix documentary. We got Megan 2 and F1. Where are we going to start?
Let me get it out of the way. Can I say the whole title of Trainwreck?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I really want to say the title.
Yep.
Because it's the title that made me watch it. Trainwreck Poop Cruise. Yes, this is a 1-hour documentary on Netflix about the infamous 2013 Carnival Triumph cruise that had a fire and lost all of its power. They didn't have any electricity. They were floating out at sea, literally dead at sea. And the toilets stopped working, my friends.
Right. Yeah.
For many days. Many days.
And so now you're on the poop cruise. That's what it's all about. Yeah. This Trainwreck series is a very interesting series on Netflix, and this is just one of the episodes.
Yeah, they did I think they did Woodstock 99, and there's a couple others that they did out there. This is okay, listen, okay. It's not the greatest documentary. Okay. Everybody that they interview from the cruise ship is totally playing it up and trying to be the talking head that they see on all the other series these, and there is one weird contrast. So you have 3 or 4 people, a cruise member or cruise ship members. What's crew? That's the word I'm trying to say.
Crew members.
So there are members of the crew who are trying to be very funny. There are people who are the passengers who are trying to be very funny. And then there's this one couple, this father and daughter, who can't stop talking about, we thought we were going to die. It was horrifying. We thought it was all over. We had to protect ourselves. And I'm just like, wow, they didn't get the memo about the tone here. No, there's no big revelations here. I think you've seen the footage. I think you've heard the stories. I'm at 2 waffles for the poop Cruise on Netflix.
All right. Well, we're down to about 2 minutes now. And we got Megan 2.0 and F1.
Okay. Megan 2.0. Boy, the sequel that nobody wanted. Nobody wanted this. The first movie was great. It was a great standalone movie. And I think the problem here is you just feel like they're trying to cash it in, right? Megan has to be resurrected because another artificial intelligence robot has gone rogue, and they can't come up with any other way to stop her other than reviving Megan, who says, I'm only going to do it if you make me stronger and taller and faster. And now she's even more dangerous. It's very funny when Megan is on the screen and she's being sassy and she's being hilarious and biting wit, right? All the other stuff is too confusing. It gets way too complicated. There's a plot in here somewhere among 5 or 6 other plots. I'm at 2 waffles for Megan 2.0.
Okay. Yeah, the first one was really pretty good, but interesting. Like you said, it's not the sequel and again, everybody's just trying to cash in on the name, which is a tough thing. All right, 1 minute for Brad Pitt in F1.
Yeah, and this is the epitome of the big summer movie, if you ask me, right? We're gonna have fast cars. It's gonna look really stylish. They're gonna have cool pulsating music. We're gonna be swerving around the track, and all the cars look like the greatest machines on the planet. And Brad Pitt, that guy's just a movie star, dude. And I think he elevates this movie, right? He's got that superstar magnetism. He's the coolest guy in the room as this former, rookie sensation, F1, Formula One race car driver who had a horrible accident and kind of disappeared for years. Well, now he's coming back, and they want him to mentor the rookie who's just as annoying as he used to be. I'm at 3 waffles. I think it's pretty good.
All right. Well, that's it for us, folks. We're out of time. You know what you need to watch. Willie, thank you so much. Folks, we will see you on Monday with Jenny Chissers from the Seldovia Chamber of Commerce. We'll see you then. I just can't think of, I think the last NASCAR type or racing type movie that I watched was Days of Thunder. I mean, that's how long it's been since I've watched a racing movie. It just, something has to draw you in, and this one might. I like Brad Pitt. I don't know. I might bring him in. We'll see.
Oh, I think so too. I will say, the last really good race car movie I saw was probably Ford versus Ferrari, which was the story of how they were inventing the Cobra, or the Shelby Cobra, and they were trying to compete with Ferrari, and that was a really good movie with I want to say it was Matt Damon and Christian Bale.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was something good. Sometimes a good race car. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it's good. Like, I still remember I really enjoyed Days of Thunder. So, but that's been 30 years ago, right? So it's it's time maybe for a new good movie. What are we watching next week, Willie? What are we looking out for?
It's Jurassic Park. The dinosaurs are back, man, and this time they want to eat Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah. How do we make them go extinct again? That's my question. I mean, they just keep coming back. The Energizer Bunny of the reptile world.
Well, and this is kind of like, I'm not going to give away too much of the plot, but the plot is basically they have to go to the testing facility, the island where the dinosaurs were first kind of unhatched by the evil DNA experimentation. And the island is still populated with many, many dinosaurs. many dinosaurs. Maybe we should nuke it for more of it. It's the only way to be sure, right? I mean, just to get it done. Drop some of them 30-ton bombs on it.
Exactly. We'll drop some of them on there, down there. All right. Well, Willie, thank you so much. I'm watching tonight the final episode of Department Q. I can't wait. I got one episode left, and I'm ready to watch it. We'll see what it looks like. We'll get you a report next week. But so far,
we're totally going to talk about that. Dynamite stuff. So, all right, fantastic. I'm excited because the bear is back, baby. So I am watching all the episodes before anybody spoils anything for me.
Well, let me tell you what happens here at the end of this season. I haven't watched a single episode, so it's all good. All right. Well, Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Never mind. Good morning. Good evening. We'll see you later, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
See you soon.
All right, folks. We're talking 4th of July in Seldovia on Monday. We'll talking about all the events and everything that's going on there. Make sure you join us. Plus, whatever else I bring to the table. It'll be interesting. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend. Be kind. Love one another. Live well.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
All right.